Do you think gambling companies will have a great future? Thank you.
What kind of companies? Gambling companies will have a terrific future if they're legal. Desire of people to gamble, and they gamble in stocks, incidentally, too. Day trading, I would say, very often came very close to gambling as defined. But people like to gamble. If the Super Bowl is on, or even, well, better yet, if a terribly boring football game is on, but you don't have anything to do, and you're sitting there with somebody else, you're probably going to enjoy the game more if you bet a few bucks on it one way or the other. The human propensity to gamble is huge. Now, when it was legalized only pretty much in Nevada, you had to go to some distance or break some laws to do any serious gambling. But as the states learned to, what a great source of revenue it was, they gradually made it easier and easier and easier for people to gamble. And believe me, the easier it's made, the more people will gamble. I mean, when I was, my children are here, and 40 years ago, I bought a slot machine and I put it up on our third floor. And I could give my kids any allowance they wanted as long as it was in dimes. I mean, I had it all back by nightfall. I thought it would be a good lesson for them. And now, they weren't going to Las Vegas to do it, but believe me, when it was on the third floor, they could find it, and my payout ratio was terrible too, but that's the kind of father I was. But gambling, people are always going to want to do it. And I do think that to quite an extent, gambling is a tax on ignorance. I mean, if you want to tax the ignorant, people who will do things with the odds against them, you just put it in, and guys like me don't have to pay taxes. And I really don't. I find it kind of socially revolting when a government preys on the weaknesses of its citizenry rather than acts to serve them. And believe me, when a government sticks, when a government makes it easy for people to take their Social Security checks and start pulling handles or participating in lotteries or whatever it may be, it's a pretty cynical act. It works. It's a pretty cynical act, and so it's not government at its best. And I think other things flow from that over time too.
Another promise that's made is that it's economic development. There's nothing getting developed. It's a transfer of money. I mean, basically, if you take the losses of everybody that participates in gambling, and it's not gaming, it's gambling. If you take the losses, it will end up going three places. It will end up going to the state as taxes to some degree. That's not development. It will end up paying part of the operating expenses of the operation, but any place you spent the money would pay part of the operating expenses of that establishment, and it'll go to the owners.
It seems to me that we've got then a product that's addictive in nature, that creates a certain pain and a cost to that leads to bankruptcies, and oftentimes prison correspondence would mean that there's crime involved.
Addictions produce crime. I mean, addictions produce crime. Not every case, but if you have a large group of people that are addicted to drugs, you're going to have more crime. If you have a large group of people that are addicted to gambling, you're going to have more crime. People get into impossible situations when they get addicted to something like that. And some people will opt for crime, some will opt for bankruptcy, some may commit suicide.
What's an amazing thing is across the nation, though, gambling has been promoted strictly on its benefits. There is no mention of the addiction, the bankruptcy.
Well, there's a lot of benefit to the owner. I mean, and there's the occasional lucky person. But for every lucky person, there's hundreds of thousands that just keep feeding the kitty. And net, it's a big loser for the citizenry.
Human nature needs margin requirements, just as it needs restrictions on selling heroin to 14-year-olds. And our legislative class, item by item, repealed all that stuff. And once it started making money, they just multiplied it I think we've created such a vested interest now in all the people that profit from this stuff that I don't think we're going back to margin requirements, and I don't think we're going to get rid of all these stock option exchanges. I knew we never needed them. Warren went and testified before Congress that we didn't need this stuff. He was a solitary voice. There was one man was down there saying, what do we need option exchanges for? But it didn't work then, and I don't think it'll work now. It's really quite sad what happened. You would like to feel that, as Tennyson said, that the thoughts of men are widened with the process of the suns. Why do we have to repeat the same old follies over and over again in a thin disguise? But evidently we do. My friend Garrett Hardin, wonderful man, another Caltech trained man, he used to say, if Aristotle were alive, he would be a very grumpy old man. Because he would have seen the same damn mistakes made over and over and over again. And that may be some of the problem with me.